talked at length earlier about Big Eye Small Mouth. It's a role-playing game built around imitating the tropes of anime from the time. It's been a few years since the final edition of Big Eye Small Mouth was released, but there's still some people that aren't content to let this idea rest, and they're still playing around with it. Now, with the simultaneous popularity of anime and role-playing games in the 1990s, it should come as no surprise then that somebody else also tried to capitalize on this. I present you all today with Tinker's Dam. If I could describe this game in one word, it'd be this: flawed. The original intent of this game was to make a game that could be played fast and lightheartedly, and that's an idea I can really get behind. Sometimes, I don't want to play a game that requires me to slog through a dense rulebook. Like this one. Character creation is simple enough. You have 6 stats rated from 1 to 20, and you get to divide 75 points up between them. Then you get another 75 points to divide amongst all your skills, also rated 1 to 20. So far so good, everything seems reasonable enough. There's a few formulas for determining a few other abilities like starting money and HP. That kinda makes sense. Here's where things get weird though. You can spend one of your character points to gain what's called a finesse, which is some little small personality quirk that gives you some advantage. Something like eidetic memory or having a high pain threshold. And those are practically the only guidelines they give for finesses. Additionally, you can gain a character point by taking some sort of flaw. They give even less description for this. All they say is that phobias or social problems like not knowing how to deal with women are good flaws. That's it. I'm not paraphrasing. That one line is what their explanation for what a flaw is. That's fine though. I can easily just cut out something as ill-defined as that. No flaws and finesses, and we only lose about half a page of text, with plenty of other pages still in the book that we might actually use. Next is physical traits. These include things like claws, cat ears, and other abnormal things for an otherwise humanoid character. These are as poorly defined as finesses and flaws were. The only example we're given is venomous fangs that happen to be retractable. These cost 3 points, one for being a natural weapon, another for being retractable, and a third for their venom. I get it. This is supposed to be a rules-light game, where the GM is expected to just sort of make things up as they go along. I can dig those kind of games. I play GURPS Ultralight. But if that's the case, why is this book over 100 pages long? The fuzzy descriptions continue on until about halfway through the next page, with the last one being a nebulous power stat. It's treated like any other stat, but having it means you can be a spellslinger, psychic, cyborg, or hacker. After that, you get a few more optional rules, and some of these are pretty cool, like letting you trade your stat points for skill points. Another lets every character have a +5 bonus to at least one of their stats or skills. And the final one listed gives you a +100 to one of your stats, meaning that unless somebody else also has that +100, you simply can't be beat when you're using that skill. I actually kind of like that idea. It guarantees that a character will have something they can't fail at most of the time, assuming there's an even spread of what all characters have their bonus 100 in, or you just don't give that bonus to unimportant NPCs. Combat sections are always a little crunchy, but this game thankfully sticks to its stated purpose of keeping it simple. Basically, the attacker and defender roll a d20 and add their relevant skills and stats. If the attacker rolls higher, roll another d20 to determine where they hit and check the chart. Then roll damage. Headshots are double damage, and arms and leg shots are half. Torsos deal normal damage. The detail about headshots and limb shots modifying damage have 2 full pages between them, but that doesn't bother me. I'm used to games with related rules being in wildly different places. Like this one. After the combat chapter, there's another combat chapter about vehicle combat. A lot of what's in this chapter refers to things that haven't been covered yet. So I'm just gonna peek ahead into the vehicle section of the... What in the world?! This game takes a complete 180-degree turn when it comes to vehicles. It goes from being rules light to really complex. There's all kinds of crazy formulas and calculations involved in designing vehicles. To make matters worse, this section also neglects giving examples. Thankfully, it's mostly hard mathematics, so as long as you remember your basic algebra, you'll be fine.
If I wanted to play a game that would require me to do basic algebra, I'd just play this!
Like I said at the start, this is a flawed game. It wants to be rules light and easy to pick up, but once you start throwing a bunch of algebra at your players, you've officially crossed that threshold. The vehicle design rules may not actually be that bad, but I'm not going to read further to find out. Mostly because they skipped over a lot of detail in magic, psychic, hacking, and cyborg sections. These are barely a few pages long, with yet more scant descriptions. Furthermore, you might be wondering why I haven't discussed how skills work, or where they come in. There's a reason for that. That's because they didn't include how skills worked. I'm going to read for you, verbatim, their errata for skills, which was listed under the Ideas section of their website. Since there has been a number of inquiries on how skills are used, here is that information, parentheses, hope it helps. Roll 1d20 below the level of the skill and figure in any positive or negative modifiers for difficulty. That's it. That's how skills work. This runs counter to how dice are used in the only other section explained in the game, combat. A lot of people decried Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition as being incomplete because it didn't have a long enough list of skills or feats or classes for their liking. That is not what makes a game incomplete. An incomplete game would be Tinker's Dam. They didn't even include rules on how to use one of their core mechanics, despite one of the optional rules being to trade in your stat points for a boost to it. This game really only did two things that I liked. The first is that a quick reference to all the rules is located in the back of the book. The second is that the artwork is, well, it's technically not that great, since there's a lot of anatomical deformities in the characters, but it's pretty consistent throughout the book. For an independently published game, I'm willing to overlook technically bad artwork. Since this is meant to be an anime and manga game, I can just imagine that they're copying the 1990s manga style. Just take a look at Saber Marionette J and you'll get what I'm talking about.
Anyways, with all that said, there's only one thing left for me to do. Now you stay in there and you contemplate your miserable existence.